There is one thing in D&D and Pathfinder that I always struggle with, and it's travel. I am GMing Storm King's Thunder for my Patreon backers at the moment, and the second act of that adventure sees the players traveling up and down the Sword Coast. It is a giant sandbox, and my philosophy for good game mastering is to present my players with as many meaningful choices as I can, where my PCs decide to go, which direction they travel in, and how they plan to mitigate the risk of their chosen path by using the skills and items at their disposal, are all choices that should have a material impact on what happens when they hit the road. And up until now, I've really just relied on random roll tables to determine the PC's fate as they travel. But I didn't have any systematic plan on how the player's choices might, for example, make good encounters more likely to occur and bad encounters less likely. But the Deck of Possibilities, our paid Kickstarter preview for the day, is a fantastic tool that you can use to maintain the fun of random encounters while giving the players agency to materially affect the odds of good outcomes while they travel. So let me show you how it works. The Deck of Possibilities is a set of customizable cards that you can use anytime the characters are traveling from one place to another, or anytime there's any uncertainty about what might happen next, really. When the party decides on their destination, their path, and their mode of travel, you just select the cards that represent possible things and events they might encounter. If they're traveling on a well-patrolled, oft-traveled road between major cities, maybe there's very little chance of running into bandits or traps, so you would mostly just select cards that indicate safe travels, or maybe they have the possibility of encountering some traveling merchants. The cards are laminated so that you can customize them with an appropriate erasable marker. Maybe the rogue robbed the house of a noble family in the previous town, so you can add a card in there saying, like, the family sent a hired mercenary who managed to track the party down. So once you get your baseline deck set up for this particular journey based on the decisions of the party and the state of that part of the world at that time, it's time for the characters to use their skills and abilities to see if they can tilt the odds in their favor through a series of skill checks. Perhaps the ranger wants to use survival to make sure they stay on that well-traveled path. Or the druid wants to continually cast Pass Without a Trace to help them keep a low profile to avoid that assassin. Maybe someone forges some official travel documents so that the officials take less notice of them. But maybe they do a really bad job of it and it actually raises alarm bells. For each of those outcomes, you can add in more cards, remove cards, or alter cards, which is going to change the odds of what happens. And then when all those skill checks are done, it's time to hit the road. You'll usually have at least one card in there that indicates that they finally reached their destination, but someone will have to draw cards until that one comes up. And then it's time to start drawing cards. One reason D&D is so popular is that at its heart, it's still a game where you roll dice. Rolling dice is fun, and so is drawing cards. You could have your players each draw a card in turn from your hand, which is what I recommend, because then you can blame that person if anything goes wrong. And that's just one way you can use this deck. You can be as creative as you want. Perhaps as you're traveling along, your druid here wild shapes into an eagle to get a bird's eye view, literally, of the upcoming road. And if they nail that perception check, maybe you'll allow them to draw 2 cards from the deck and then choose the one they want to resolve. Perhaps your ranger has been able to befriend some fey creatures who inhabit the forest the PCs need to traverse. You might hand the player 2 bypass cards that they can use to skip over encounters that they draw that they don't really want to engage with, as the fey creatures usher them through some safer shortcuts. Perhaps your herbalist wants to be on the lookout for certain herbs as they travel through the woods. If they succeed on their nature check, you might add in some ingredient cards that you wrote up that they can draw. Or maybe your cleric communes with their deity to try to get a glimpse of what's to come, in which case you might let the cleric draw 3 cards from the deck that you've created for their next round of travel, and they can just look at it, giving that PC a chance to prepare for something that might occur along the way, and then you can just shuffle those cards back into the deck. The deck in the Kickstarter is scheduled to come with 40 unique cards, most of which have duplicates for 90 cards total. And of course, this is an early Kickstarter video, so things may have changed between the time I'm making this and the time the campaign launches. And things might change along the way in the campaign as well. But the deck has already undergone thousands of hours of playtesting, starting way back in 2019, including by me. I got to play through an adventure with my good friends Andy and Gary and Glenn, and thank you, gents, for joining me for that. We had a fantastic time. And here is an overview of the cards that you can expect in the basic set, along with the set of instructions that you'll get. And again, you'll want to build your own deck for each trip or other scenario that you want to craft using the selection of cards from the overall set. And remember that the cards do have room for you to jot down your own notes. For example, with the Monsters Attack cards, you can write in which particular monsters are roaming in that particular area. So maybe it's like a basilisk and an owlbear and a young white dragon. And for those of you playing online these days, which is how I play tested the deck of possibilities, you can also get digital versions of the cards. VTTs like Roll20 have the infrastructure built in for deck building and shuffling and card draw. Or you could just use the digital cards to print out your own decks at home if you prefer. And the physical copies of the decks that you get will also come with a complimentary digital copy. The digital deck is just $15. The 90 card physical deck is $30. But if you jump in during the first 48 hours of the campaign, you can get it for $25. For more flexibility, you can get 2 standard decks for $60. Or if you want to get just a bunch of decks to use as gifts or at a con or for whatever creative plan that you're concocting there, you can get 10 decks for just $150, which is just $15 a piece. That's half off. And they also have add-ons. You can add on more standard decks, of course, but they also have a complete digital how-to guide for game masters for $35, which will include a full breakdown of the deck and lots of expanded examples to help you get the most out of it. And a pre-built campaign using the deck to help you and your players get used to incorporating it into your adventures. And if the campaign really takes off, I have it on good authority that we'll see some additional decks that you'll be able to pick up as well with some Kickstarter exclusive cards. Oh, one more thing. They have minis. Really good-looking minis from what I can tell. You've got the Ember Snapper, which should look familiar to my friends who playtested the adventure with me, and 2 minis of a creature known as a Dromiodon, one in a standing pose and one in a flying pose. Personally, though, this whole campaign is right up my alley. After trying it out, this is the way I want to run travel encounters from now on. It is thematic, it's fun, it gives the players a ton of agency, and it lets them use their creativity to manipulate the deck, either by adding cards, or removing cards, or collecting cards, or previewing cards, or probably even in ways that I haven't even thought of yet. I think this is just tapping into that love that I have for deck building games like Dominion and Clank and Thunderstone Quest, which you might be able to see behind me here. God, I want to play those now. But yeah, the deck of possibilities, it just makes your games more fun. And isn't that what we're all here for? Go check them out today at the Kickstarter link in the corner of your screen up there or on the doohickey down below. Kindly let them know that we sent you. Do remember that Kickstarter is not a store, so you won't be getting your cards right away. Looks like they're planning on fulfillment around February 2023. And like for every Kickstarter, read through the entire project and make sure this is one you're comfortable with. If you're unfamiliar with Kickstarter, we have some information about it in the video description down below me here. And also, if you have some ideas for other ways to use the cards, let me know down in the comment section too. I feel like there's a lot of fun ways to utilize this deck that I haven't even thought of yet. And if you're new to me, my name is Theo, and I'm one of the proprietors of The Gallant Goblin, where we review minis and terrain and TTRPG books and adventures and lots more. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. For now, though, safe travels, have fun, love each other, and I'll see you soon if you draw the Gallant Goblin card.